During August I was able to find, yes, like July 1st or something. The I've been able to work on. I picture this in August. A studio in West London that is lit by candles. Old amps hum and have low noises. Jimmy Page, rock's elusive alchemist, sits back in a worn-out velvet chair and looks through record covers. But these aren't new releases from Zeppelin. These are records made by women. Women whose talents did more than just sing. Page has spent her whole life looking for the mysterious, the sad and the exciting. 5 women caught his attention during that search and will never be forgotten. Not only for their skills but also for how their energy seemed to match or even beat his own. There was first the raw scream of pain and beauty. Janet Joplin. Page felt like she was hit by lightning the first time she heard Janis on the radio. She burst out in tears, not song. Her tone of voice was rough with passion, and her words were wild. Not show business but staying alive. In 1968 they met for a short time in San Francisco. They only shook hands and said a few words, but that was enough. Afterward, Page said he had never met anyone who felt every note the way she did, like each word came straight from her heart. To Page, Janis was as bare as a rock. Nothing fake or fancy, just fire. Her energy was wild, raw, and terrible. People in the room were not asked to feel anything. She pushed them to not do it. What moved him the most was how weak and strong she was at the same time. The way she could scream like a hurricane and then quiet down to a whisper that shook like glass. She didn't ask for anything and gave everything. It made him think of what music was meant to do. Scare you, make you feel, and make you believe. The next one was classy with steel underneath. Nix and Stevie. Stevie spoke softly where Janis screamed. Still, she was just as strong. Page fell in love with her voice as soon as he heard Ryan. It wasn't just the tune. The mood she created was what it was. Her spirituality, the way she spoke, and the way she sounded like she was spellbound. All of it made him think of how much he was interested in the mysterious, the unknown, and the unspoken. In the late 1970s they met at a party in the Hollywood Hills. There were no cameras or news reports, just 2 icons moving in and out of candlelight and talking about tarot cards and sound waves. She spoke like a poet who was reading dreams. He listened like a student, taking in every beat. They thought they were the only ones in the room and maybe even the world for a moment. You wouldn't have known there was a storm coming until it was already over your head. That's how she moved. They didn't flirt, they just recognized each other. The sound of 2 artists who are deeply rooted in myth speaks the same language. While I was at home, I would play the guitar and work on pieces of music that I thought would fit on the next record. Page told a friend that her voice can be heard in places long after she's gone. He thought that was the most powerful magic there was. Then there was a voice that broke the quiet like thunder. The front of the Jefferson airplane is graced by Slick. She said Grace did more than just sing. She was brave, which made Page respect her. She stood her ground and yelled louder in a world full of frontmen who were in love. She wasn't just strong in voice. It was deeply political, deeply personal, and deeply raw. The way she moved on stage was very hypnotic. Controlled but not sane, rebellious but not hopeless. Page often said that with a look and a verse she could quiet a crowd and set someone on fire. She didn't sing to get likes. She sang because she couldn't be quiet. In 1969 they played together at a concert. When Zeppelin brought the storm, Grace brought the change. When she sang, the crowd changed, which entranced him even more. He watched from the wings. They did what she told them to do. There was no acting, just fire. In the end he said that her performance sounded like a kingdom falling apart. He could say no better than that because he saw what he admired most in Grace. He saw power in someone who didn't just go with the flow of things but changed them. The next ones were precise, elegant and defiantly bluesy. Give Page a score. People who study American blues were amazed by Bonnie's slide guitar skills. He put down what he was doing when he heard Love Me Like a Man. It wasn't just how they played. It was the bass, the space between the notes. The girl did not hit the instrument. She talked through it slowly and deliberately, as if she wasn't afraid of what her fingers might find. She was able to combine technique and tenderness, which amazed him the most. Every note sounded like it was one. It was never flashy. There was a storm on stage that was so quiet that lightning wasn't needed. It just showed up heavy with soul. Page thought her words made him think of the Delta bluesmen he admired, but they also had something else about them. From the point of view of a woman who had seen the world, been hurt by it, and refused to let it define her. Her tone showed sadness without giving in to it. With one twist of a string, she could tell a story. She acted like she had been through fire before, and didn't need to scream. She was gracious in her anger and calm in her grit. It was bold without being too loud and cozy, without being too soft. Even though they never played together, Page followed her success. He bought her music not because he was a fan but because he was a traveler who saw a kind of holy economy in her sound. There should be no extra sounds or flourishes. In New York he introduced himself, stopped for a second as if thinking about what to say, then just told her she had the best hands in the business and left. That was the way he did things, with quiet respect and nothing more. In private he often called her the heartbeat of modern blues, not because she changed the style but because she made it solid. While other people tried to repackage it, she kept it steady. Because Bonnie made every note matter in a world where flash often drowned out feeling. That was everything for Page. She didn't want to be seen. It was her wish to be heard. And she was always mean without ever having to raise her voice. Finally, PJ Harvey, the latest rebel in a long line of rebels. Page didn't change as she got older. He changed. And in PJ Harvey, he saw a bit of the same musical danger that made him want to be a kid again. Her voice was sharp, intense and unwavering. Her guitar playing was rude, as sharp as broken glass, and yet it was an exact ritual. There was nothing fancy about her style. It was all blood and guts, and no one said sorry. She did a show for him in London in the late 1800s. There's no flash or filtering, just music and fear. She didn't smile or pose. She cut through the quiet like it owed her something. He was really scared by it. He made him think of the first time he saw Page and Plant work together on stage without knowing what would happen. Still the same amount of risk. Page was most amazed by how she kept the chaos under control. It wasn't about style or loudness, it had to do with the truth. Every note from PJ sounded like it was written from a real pain. Her silence showed defiance, and her grip on herself showed anger. And that kind of openness and fearless conflict made him think of the rawness he used to seek when Zeppelin was young. It was like she was stuck between old and new, like a blues singer in a post-punk body singing ghost stories on a broken guitar. Page never talked about her in public, but people who knew him well say that her songs were like talismans in his bag. Not marked but always close. He didn't have to say her name out loud. Her songs could already be heard in the darker parts of his legacy. She did more than just show where rock came from. She showed that it still had the guts to go places. Jimmy Page made a lot of money with riffs, mystery, and fire. But even Chaos Kings have their models. Page didn't hear soft sounds in the background either. They were thunder on their own. These women weren't singing backup for any famous person. They were famous in their own way. Their tone told the truth. Their delivery was defiant, and their every move was magical. Each one showed Page a different side of herself. Wildfire by Janis, Smoke and Shadow by Stevie, Revolution by Grace, Bonnie's toughness and PJ's rough edge. That's not what he saw in them. Competition. That rock's deepest truths had nothing to do with loudness, bravado, or gender. They were born with guts and soul. Page saw magic where others saw theater. He never tried to shape them. He stood there in awe and quietly took in what they said. Their music did more than just move him. It warned him, made him feel better, and pushed him. Their voices didn't belong in his world. They were living in lighthouses. Page, who was always looking for something, would never forget how their words lit the way, even when it was dark, when everyone had left, and when it was very quiet. Because he didn't think real music was based on gender. It wasn't even a person. It had magic in it.